Wait, are you just a ghost inside my head? Oh my god, I have to do this alone! Oh my god!
Dude, you're amazing!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to your favorite show for all things gaming and rarely tech related, Gentoo. I'm Jonas Pilot.
And I'm Gabe Chadwick. Welcome back to another episode of Gentoo. We have some great stuff in this episode, so let's get into it.
We are the Order. We are the fallen gods. But we rise again.
Get set for the adrenaline-charged sequel, Ghost Runner 2. Dive into the post-apocalyptic cyberpunk realm facing an infiltrating AI cult. Forge yourself into the ultimate cyber ninja with dynamic abilities, new game modes, and intense battles within the cyber void. Circle October 26th on your calendar. That's when Ghost Runner 2 lands on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X.
Listen closely, for this is the tale of Little Goody Two-Shoes. Join Elise as she ventures into the dark and mysterious woods in search of her dreams of fortune and riches.
Prepare for a chilling narrative adventure in Little Goody Two-Shoes, set within a hand-painted fairy tale universe with 10 unique endings influenced by your decisions. This game goes beyond the ordinary. Navigate Elise's life in the village, where your choices significantly impact her survival. Keep in mind, every decision plays a crucial role in this gripping tale. Little Goody Two-Shoes arrives on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch on October 31st.
If those games sounded good to you, make sure to check those out and remember to stay tuned for next week's gaming releases.
Make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to never miss an episode as well. Now let's listen to some stories from the Foxhole.
In the fight for Faramore, it had come to a stalemate, and now it was time for the High Command to look for other avenues of attack on the city of Faramore. I was sent 3 miles to the west, to a bridge that we were supposed to push across and establish a foothold on the southern side of the river. The bridge had been getting harassed for a couple days by colonial armored vehicles, but we had a little surprise for them. Logistics had just brought in one of the newest weapons of the war, the Cutler Foebreaker. A twin-barrel RPG to be used against any armored vehicle we could imagine, and I got to test it out on the front line. At the bridgehead, I was establishing my position with the RPG when we were encountered by 2 colonials and an armored car. Me and my squad mates acted as quickly as we could. We eliminated the 2 colonials that had crossed across the bridge, but not before I took a bullet myself. But I was not going to be deterred. Bandaged myself up, grabbed the rest of the Cutler Foebreaker, slammed it on a tripod, threw a round in, and launched the first RPG of many I would fire. I landed a successful hit against a colonial armored car and scaring them off. Here, we were able to establish our position better on the northern side of the bridge, to where we could more effectively counter colonial counterattacks. It wasn't long before the colonials brought up a field machine gun, a bit more heavily armored than the armored cars, and able to suppress us too heavily. Also, we had run out of RPGs. Pinned down and with nowhere to go, we used the cover of night to hold our side of the bridge, and we waited for further supplies for RPGs. The next day, the Logi truck brought what we needed, 30 new RPGs to launch at the Colonials. Under heavy machine gun fire, me and my squad were able to move an RPG far enough up onto the bridge to where we could get a clear shot on the Colonial field gun. Taking out its crew and scaring back the armored car next to it, we were able to suppress the fire on it. Getting more RPGs, we were able to finally destroy the Colonial field machine gun.
The field gun's down! The field gun's down!
Lightening up the suppressive fire. With the field machine gun down, we were able to inch the RPG closer and closer. Finally, we got to the very edge of the destroyed bridge. Here, we were able to destroy another Colonial armored car.
Let's go, boys!
Nice. An absolute victory for us, as we had no armored support of our own. Not long after, the Colonial tank crews moved up a light tankette and another armored car. Here, we were able to effectively destroy the Colonial tankette as well, reducing it down to one single armored car.
Here comes the tank, guys.
We got it!
Night was falling quick, and the armored car was starting to learn from its mistakes of his more unfortunate predecessors. He stayed further back, out of the effective range of our RPGs, but we were now able to send men across to the other side of the bridge to try and establish a bridgehead. I'm running out of time, so make sure to tune into the next episode of Stories from the Foxhole to see if we make it across the bridge.
Hey guys, how's it going? Hold up, can we take a second to look at my drip real quick? Sheesh! Thanks. Anyways, I'm Corby, and welcome back to my content corner. So, Five Nights at Freddy's, right? I like it, you like it, heck, even Jack Black likes it. We all know the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is hitting theaters very soon, so in honor of that, I thought, why not change up my formula on this series and make a rapid-fire tier list of all the games in the franchise. Sound good? Let's go! Five Nights at Freddy's. Absolutely iconic. The gameplay is simple, and the horror elements are perfectly crafted to make this game one of the scariest in the series. A tier. Next, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, a good sequel to the first game. They made it feel very similar, but also completely different by changing some of the basics that made the first game work so well. One of my favorites. A tier. Next, Five Nights at Freddy's 3. No, no, no. Springtrap, hallucination jump scares every 30 seconds, and rebooting power all the time. Need I say more? C tier. Next, Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Who thought a game where you have to listen really closely to the quiet sounds of the monster animatronics was a good idea? They make you turn up your volume so they can blow out your eardrums 5 seconds after. C tier. Next, FNAF World. Why are they all little cuties in an RPG? What is this, FNAF Fantasy? I guess it's pretty fun. B tier. Next, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. Fully changed up the traditional game formula and is very lore heavy and spooky. B tier. Next, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Buy things, play games, don't get a lawsuit, and do anything else you can to avoid ending the day and going into this. But besides that, really fun. B tier. Next, Ultimate Custom Night. Why are there so many of them? What is even going on right now? Why are you telling me a story? And why is Chica an anime girl? Release me! D tier. Next, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. Now we're talking. Every major FNAF game boiled into a remastered and incredibly immersive package to create the scariest game in the franchise that pays homage to everything that came before it. I still can't finish it. S tier. Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery. Shamrock Freddy, Liberty Chica, Circus Foxy, and Chocolate Bonnie. Who the heck greenlit this? F tier. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. What the heck even happened here? This doesn't even feel like Five Nights at Freddy's. This is just an adventure horror game with goofy, flashy robots. Talk about jumping the shark. Vanessa, can I get an F tier? There you go. That's the list. See you next week. Ah!
In a land born of conflict, where the line between divine and demonic are blurred. Five legendary heroes must save the day. Or not.
I don't know what it's called. I come from the marsh, so I don't know what it's called.
Come watch Sulphur Saloons on Wednesday at noon.
On this week's episode of Channel 8 News, we look at the blood drive, the new art gallery, and more.
For the stories that matter to you, watch new episodes of Channel 8 News every Monday at 9 a.m. on KNWT TV.
My name is Gabriel Lozano, and welcome to the 6th episode of Audio Odyssey, a show where we go over a few of the best video game soundtracks and what makes them so great. This week, we're going to take a look at The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time's 82-song soundtrack was written by no other than Koji Kondo. And if you watched my first episode on Audio Odyssey, you already know that Koji had a major impact on video game music, and he had worked with Nintendo for years before this. So, it's no question Kondo didn't disappoint with Ocarina of Time's soundtrack when it was released on November 21st, 1998. In case you didn't see episode 1, Koji Kondo is a Japanese composer that has released some of the most popular video game themes and soundtracks of all time. Some of these include the Mario music, Star Fox, and of course, all of the Legend of Zelda soundtracks. It was hard to choose which Zelda game to talk about this week because Kondo has made such amazing soundtracks for all his games. But I eventually landed on the Ocarina of Time because of how unique the music of the game really is. When writing the music for the game, Kondo decided to take more of an orchestral approach to the music. Strings, woodwinds, and even brass instruments are very prevalent in the game, which is a lot different from what we heard back in 1993 in The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Even as you load up the game and sit on the title screen, you'll realize pretty fast how unique and new the music really feels. You're immediately greeted with the calm and relaxing sound of piano, strings, and finally the main melody, which is played on the ocarina. The ocarina is one of the many reasons why the soundtrack of this game is so amazing and why it feels so unique. The ocarina isn't really used that often in modern day music, but I think Kondo using this instrument as a main part of the game really makes the soundtrack stand out. Another way this game stands out is the use of percussive instruments, which drives the music. Drums, bongos, marimbas, and a lot more percussion can be heard throughout the soundtrack. Some of the songs that really rely on percussion include Lost Woods and the amazing tribal song of Goron City. Not only does the soundtrack of this game feel different, but it also opened the door for many new ideas for Zelda's music in the future. Today, if you listen to any of the more recent Zelda soundtracks, you'll find that the game's music follows the same orchestral and percussive nature that Ocarina of Time put into place back in 1998. So next time you're fighting your way through a dungeon, or maybe learning a new song on your ocarina, don't forget how important the music of Ocarina of Time really is. And that was another episode of Audio Odyssey. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see everybody back here on Gentoo next week.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mental State, the show where we dive into the psychological side of classic video game characters. This week, we will be taking a look at To the Moon, a game that deals with loss, death, and finding oneself. Without further ado, let us dive in. The world that this game takes place in deals with granting last wishes to dying patients. Scientists are brought into the patient's home and explore their memories to fulfill this last wish. The character that we are helping is Johnny Wiles, an elderly man who wishes to go to the moon. As we explore his past memories, we find that his wife, River, has some interesting quirks. She would fold an immense amount of origami rabbits, chase after a hacky sack she asked him to throw, and seem distant in most social interactions. On their wedding night, she named the lighthouse they sat next to Anya, which is explained earlier in Johnny's memories, as she seems to have an obsession towards lighthouses. Johnny, throughout the game, keeps commenting on how weird she is, but also about how much she means to him. Going past his high school times, however, we find a roadblock. His earliest memories are cut off, blocking access to the earliest points of his life. Trying to run these memories, we find that his life stays exactly the same. This is the point in the game in which we find that Johnny was given beta blockers as a young child. The reason for this? Johnny witnessed the death of his twin brother, Joey, who his mother had hit with the family car. In her trying to process this event, we come to find that she chose to believe that Joey, her favorite son, had lived over Johnny. This explains later events from the game, in which Johnny thought that Joey was merely a nickname that his mother called him. We see this favoritism in these earlier memories at a festival. Johnny's mother compares him to Joey, saying that he should be just like him. He wanders off, finding a log to sit on. Here, he meets River for the first time. They share a moment, talking about the stars and finding constellations. They both find a rabbit in the stars surrounding the moon, excitedly looking out into the cosmos. Johnny's mom calls for him, and he leaves River with 3 things. He gives her a plush platypus, a hacky sack, and a promise to meet her on the moon. This first memory highlights her later actions, showing her confusion as to how he could forget their first meeting. The rest of the game folds out from this point. River is taken from one memory, Joey lives, and Johnny ends up finding his way to a career at NASA. Here, he meets River again. As Johnny starts to fade, he has a final memory, heading towards the moon with River. The loss in this game is shown in a beautifully painful representation of a life lived. The interactions between Johnny and River fall into place the moment you learn of their first meeting, and his whole life becomes a harrowing tale of love and the human experience. Thank you for coming into my office. I have once again been Dr. Snotterly. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next week for our 7th session.
Dude, why were you late to work this morning?
Dude, there's like this guy who just like killed a cop and then like got out of his car and just started killing a whole bunch of people. And like the only thing I could think about was like, God, I'm gonna be late to work,
That
man.
sounds insane.
Yeah, it was like, oh, no. Did you save?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't save either.
Do you think the boss is gonna take massive power outage and gunshots and explosions as a viable excuse?
I don't think so, man. He's kind of a gonk.
He is a gonk. You know, if this is the end, Gabe, I'm glad it was with you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Work with you was breathtaking.
You're breathtaking, man.
Hello, and welcome back to Dark and Dumber. I'm your host, Evan. We're getting musical and running some bard. Also, changing it up, focusing on more how to fight this episode rather than just looting. So without further ado, let's get right into the dungeon. Before we go in, you should know that you always move faster running than backstepping. So if you need to retreat, turn around and book it. You're also faster putting your weapons away rather than running with them out. Starting off with a shield means I've got to know how to dodge properly. So let's go over all the ways that you can avoid mobs. Firstly, in PvP, your biggest buff against players is to have good movement and positioning, to be able to hit their head without yours being hit. You're always going to take at least one hit, but make sure you're hitting those shrines, healing up, and getting ready to go. When fighting any of the skeletons, you want to make sure which ones you're fighting, depending on the weapon it is using. The easiest skeleton is the footman/guardsman, only having a short sword and shield, depending on the variant you're fighting. You can dodge these by walking away or striking to the side of the swings most times. The skeleton swordsman is the next mob. To dodge this, you can either bait their swings then run back, or duck their swings by looking up or down during your crouch, while they swing. The spear skeleton is the next, at first seeming intimidating, having the most range with the spear, but are actually pretty easy to take out. If they go for a stab, then just walk to the side. If they try to overhead swipe you, then you can dodge by walking backwards. Arguably the hardest skeleton though is the axeman skeleton. For this variant, sidestepping and running away will not work as good. For dodging, you have to be loose and footsie with your movement. The best way to deal with this mob is to hug it and walk to the side every time it swings, and duck with a side swipe. Archers can be dangerous when you're combined with groups of mobs. To dodge these in order to strafe the arrows, but be careful. They seem to randomly shoot twice and will change from aiming to your head to aiming to your body. The skeleton mage is just like the archers, only throwing fireballs instead of the arrows. The mage will cast an invulnerability spell on itself and other mobs. When this happens, it's best to just run. Mummies are incredibly basic and easy to beat, having an overhead swing and a lunge with both hands, but these attacks are incredibly easy to dodge, only having to back and strafe to dodge these attacks. Zombies are much like the mummies, but instead of having a lunge attack, it is replaced with a noxious cloud that burps up. While the cloud doesn't do much damage, they can stack up and become a nuisance fast. Spiders are the easiest mob to kill, but can sneak up on you. Usually if there are spiders, there's a spawner nearby that you need to take out. If you don't destroy the spawner, the spiders are just going to keep coming at you. Now that isn't all the mobs included in this game, but covers a vast majority of them. Knowing how to dodge these will almost guarantee your success in the dungeon. Thanks for tuning in to Dark and Dumber. See you guys next time. Peace out.
job on the analysis of the game last week.
Oh, thanks.
Come on, Jason, you're not a football player.
Tosses it toward the end zone, pass cut, touchdown for Northwest Missouri State. It's Alexander coming up with a catch.
Now that's a football player. Make sure you check out Bearcat Update every Monday at 6 on KNWT TV on YouTube. We got sports news, scores, behind the scenes, and anything to do with Northwest Missouri State University here in Titletown. Check us out.
Welcome back to Mustard's Madness, where this week we have All-Star Festivals going on. First up on the list is the Rising Stars game, where we are selected to come off the bench, and then I also get chosen to compete in the three-point contest against some great competition. Sadly, we just missed out on our All-Star selection this year, but that just gives me more motivation to get in next year. First up, here are some highlights from the Rising Stars game. We were able to get some great looks on the interior, which led to some great slams.
Shot clock at 6. And success when it comes to shooting. By MP. Their work on the board has been impressive. Guys, that's putting the smaller players. Why not get the added rebounding and offensively, defensively, they are in total control. Don't leave out the coach anyways. It's been good in terms of more people being able.
After a fun game, we finished with 28 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in this game. Next up is the three-point contest. This is some stiff competition with Steph Curry, Trae Young, Klay Thompson, Luka Doncic, and Lauri Markkanen. Here's my first round attempt where I get off to a solid start, making 6 of my first 10. 4 of those are money balls, which are worth 2 points apiece. The top of the key was the disappointment with only 2 makes, but at least we get the money ball. On the final 2 racks, I'm able to convert 5 of 10 for a total of 20, which should get me into the second round. I'm up first in the finals, going up against Steph Curry and Lauri Markkanen, who had 24 and 23 points respectively. I know that I need a good performance to keep my hopes alive. The first 2 racks start similar, with 7 out of 10 and still only 4 money balls being made. On the third rack, I was able to knock down 3 in a row, but that momentum fizzled out shortly. With the last rack, we need to finish strong, but after some close calls on the shot meter, we were down to our last money ball, and it fell short, leaving us with 17 points. Markkanen finished with 14 points, so it's down to Steph Curry. He has his money ball rack in the first slot, which makes me nervous when he's able to knock down 3 of them, but with some bad misses on the second rack, and the third rack is going to come down to the wire. The fourth rack for Curry crushes my dreams as he makes all 5, tying my score. Fifth rack, he misses 1, now 2, now 3, now 4. It's all down to the last ball, and he does it, finishing with 19 points, taking home the title. A short-lived but fun weekend of all-star activities concludes this week's episode of Mustard's Madness. Join us next week as we get back into the regular season action.
Edge Runners. If you've seen it, probably have a pretty good idea on how much of a hit this one-off show was. Cyberpunk Edge Runners released a couple of years after Cyberpunk 2077 did. It's colorful, high action, and has that Cyberpunk classic gut-wrenching ending that's become a must with everything in this series. Come on, man. CD, just give me some Sorry. Still not over how much Phantom Liberty hurt. With Edge Runners came an update to Cyberpunk, Update 1.5, which more or less set this game on the right path to its later success. And today, that's what we're talking about. How this update saved this game from falling into Night City's graveyard of legends.
The graveyard!
A personal favorite was the quest where you acquired David's jacket, the main character of the show. And in the process, we even talked to one of the surviving members of David's crew to get it. And where do you find it? Right next to the building that David's living in the game. or was anyway. And honestly, looks pretty preem on V. Not as good as the samurai jacket, though. That's not the only thing they added from something in the show. Rebecca's shotgun. Cyberpunk's own little ball of chaos who can't even handle her own weapons without flying back 2 feet. People loved this character. And right where Smasher drops down and turns her to a nice fine paste, there it is, her shotgun. Which also will blow you back, but do an insane amount of damage. Those were just some of the fun things added to the game. From a more technical standpoint, the game was given a few bandages in places where it really needed them, especially in the visuals department. Before, everything looked pretty flat and fake because of lighting, but with this update, it became really difficult to find visual bugs that really took you out of the immersion in the game, especially in the mirrors, which you actually come across quite often in Cyberpunk. Some others included AI improvements to make NPCs feel more natural, some small gameplay tweaks, and more efficient mod support for PC. Its biggest change, though, was allowing players to see just how gorgeous this game looks with ray tracing. Yeah. This game's crazy beautiful if you want your wallet to hurt. Edgerunner's genuinely good story, combined with the changes to the game, gave Cyberpunk a lifeline up until Phantom Liberty, where it completely knocked it out of the park. I'm still not over how good it was. I'm really not. That's all I have time for today. We're going to change gears next week and venture deeper into one of the best things that this game could have possibly added last minute. The photo mode. Catch that next week on Cyberpunk. This has been Zach, signing off.
Hello and welcome back to I'm Not a Loser, where I show you how to be as good at video games as I am. When it comes to games of any kind, I'm just a natural. But today we're playing what I believe I am at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm taking a shower. Street Fighter 6. When it comes to Street Fighter 6, you can call me Mike Tyson. In Street Fighter 6, a very important aspect that new players will always ignore is meter management. In Street Fighter 6, you have 2 gauges, your drive gauge and your normal super gauge. The super gauge is only used for supers, which can be used in a multitude of ways. Drive gauge, however, is a very important part of the game, because if it runs down to 0, then you're in a really bad position. Which never happens to me because I'm a master at meter management. When first jumping into Street Fighter 6, many players think that you don't have to practice combos and techniques in the training mode. This is a big mistake because when playing to rise the ranks, you have to know your special moves and combos like the back of your hand, which are vital to gameplay. Nothing is more rewarding than practicing a combo in training mode and finally landing it in a match. Unless you're like me, because I never need to practice, because I was just built different. Dude, if I don't get this next combo, I'm gonna cut my pinky toe off. I didn't mean that. Finally, a huge part of Street Fighter 6 is what the pros call neutral. It's where you and your opponent are on equal footing. This is where things like drive impact, jumping, and poking are utilized by you and your opponent to get the upper hand. When playing Street Fighter 6, you need to counter and utilize these techniques to win. Which, let's be real, I'm always doing that. I mean, I've never been hit by drive impact once. Dude, I definitely countered that. With these tips and tricks, hopefully your time in the streets will be a little less pummel heavy. Remember, nobody gets good overnight, unless you're me of course, so just remember that the streets are ruthless, and you won't always come out on top. But with some grit, you can become like me and pummel your enemies into the ground.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Gentoo.
If you liked it, be sure to give a thumbs up.
For more Gentoo content, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and while you're at it, why not revisit some of our previous episodes?
We have another episode coming your way next week, so tune in.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yo.
Oh my god, this is the new camel bit. If anyone ever mentions Cyberpunk middle bit,
I am a professional, Warren, okay? Our episode goes to everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.